Hmm. Uh, huh?
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, featuring your hosts, Taylor Field and Reuben Olson.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cryptid Clues. I'm your host, Reuben Olson, joined by our other main man, Taylor Field. Today, we're conveniently misremembering everything as we explore the effect of the, what's it called again? Mandela Effect? Well, I remember one thing for sure, and it's that you should be sure to check us out at CryptidClues.ca. Send us an email at CryptidClues@gmail.com. Join our Patreon for as low as $1 for ad-free exclusive content and rewards at patreon.com/CryptidClues. And finally, you can find us on almost all social media. With the intro out of the way, because I say it the same way every single time, let's talk about things that are changing all the time with the Mandela Effect. So, a Google search of the Mandela Effect describes it as such. False memories can sometimes be shared by multiple people. This phenomenon was dubbed the Mandela Effect by paranormal researcher Fiona Broom, who reported having vivid and detailed memories of news coverage of South African anti-apartheid leader Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. Now, a lot of people had memories of these newscasts and events, but Nelson Mandela did not die in prison. Taylor, what's your familiarity with the Mandela Effect moving into this before I go ahead with my big speech?
Well, I learned about it very recently when I was first introduced to the concept of, which we'll get into later on, the Berenstain Bears. And that's where I first heard the term, the Mandela Effect. And it really blew my mind. And learning more about where the term derived from, about President Nelson Mandela dying in prison, or not dying in prison, it really piqued my interest. And that's when I started to kind of see how this could apply to other things in life, I guess you could say, because it's either you could say and justify like, hey, it's your brain maybe going haywire, crosswire, faulty, some kind of cognitive backwards thing happening. But when it's such a larger scale, and I think that's where the Mandela Effect comes into play here, it's not just you, it's over a significant portion of the population that misremembers a significant event or shares a memory of that event that did not actually occur. Then that's when you have a very interesting Mandela Effect situation.
Yeah, like Nelson Mandela dying in prison or not dying in prison in the 80s. Of course, for my generation, perhaps my personal Mandela Effect was a little bit different and quite a bit more innocent. One of the biggest and most popular mass memory tricks would end up being the classic children's books, The Berenstain Bears, which I grew up reading. They were made by the late Stan and Jan Berenstain. I even watched the cartoon, which would bridge the gap between Treehouse for toddlers and YTV for kids wanting something a little more grown up. Years later, however, my memories of Berenstain actually being pronounced Berenstein and spelled Steen proved to be inaccurate. Sometime around 2012, the world changed. A mass collective unconscious awoke and noticed that the Berenstain Bears was spelled differently than they thought. Why did everybody notice this now? Why not before? That's my question. Perhaps the strangest part of this phenomenon is that everybody noticed this around the same time, and it became an internet craze. Was it Berenstein, or was it Berenstain? I distinctly remember Stein, but that was never ever the case. In fact, the authors are also named Berenstain with an AIN, which is rather uncommon given that the last name and the word in general is almost always spelled Steen, especially where they hailed from.
Mm-hmm.
So people started thinking real deeply about it too. People started going crazy. dubbing our reality the Stain universe, and deciding that at some point in 2012, a huge part of the population snapped into this reality from the Steen universe. But this is crazy talk, right? We're getting carried away, influenced by pop culture like Back to the Future. And I'm sure all of our listeners, at least the majority of our listeners, know what Back to the Future is. If you don't, it's a trilogy of movies about time travel and the effects it leaves behind when you model in events that preceded the present. Going back in time as your current self and accidentally interrupting the moment in time when your parents were supposed to meet means you'll never be born. And thus, reality begins to change as you know it. In Back to the Future, these changes are pretty subtle, usually self-contained in Marty McFly's family, but perhaps the most relevant Mandela effect in the movie's plot is when the DeLorean crashes into the trees that later become the namesake of the Twin Pines Mall. Well, after the DeLorean crash back in the past, there's a scene in the later time in the movie, the name of the mall sign is subtly changed to reflect the now lonesome pine that's left. It's no longer called the Twin Pines Mall. I feel like that kind of dubs how we feel about the Berenstain Bears thing and the Mandela Effect in general. We remember something distinctly, but it's like an event caused it to change, and it makes us feel out of place, like we no longer belong here. In other time travel media, such as the Butterfly Effect or Steins Gate, every step, decision, and thing that happens differently during time travel branches out to create a completely different reality. So, going back to the Stain and the Steen universe, what happened in 2012? Did we just misremember the name of a beloved children's book like our parents and older siblings misremembered very clear newscasts on the very much alive Nelson Mandela dying in prison? Whom, by the way, definitely didn't die, since he later went on to become the president of South Africa. That's a pretty prominent figure, and you'd think that if everybody thinks he's dead, they would have found that out a lot sooner when they noticed that he was president of South Africa. It's almost like a flip happened, where everyone just kind of learned the news and went, he's been president all this time of South Africa? What? That's super strange. Well, it turns out Berenstain Bears is not the only mass misremembering. Around the time, at least the alleged time, traveler John Teeter made waves across the internet in the year 2000, other things started to change Marty McFly style across our reality. And that's going to leave us with a whole bunch of theories. Is it alternate realities? Is it time travel that's affected things? What's your take on that, Taylor?
The DeLorean debacle between the Twin Pines name and the single pine name of the mall, I think that's a very, very good application to this, actually. I wasn't expecting you to pull that out. That's actually really, really cool.
That was my little hat trick for the episode.
But moving down that path, it does make me wonder, because I didn't ever think of it as necessarily a point in time where the result of a time traveler going back, changing something, and then it's just splintering off, and we're part of that splintered timeline that's experiencing this. And like, hey, we have a little bit of memory that kind of, we think of something like collective conscious telling us that it's supposed to be this, but it's actually this. And it's weird how the trigger works as well, because the trigger, when it hits, it's like extremely potent. Like you said, everyone just was going along not thinking about Berenstain this whole time, and then all of a sudden it clicks, and then people start questioning it. I mean, how did our parents make that mistake? Because our parents didn't talk about it.
It's one of those things too, where normally if you misremember something and you figure out the truth, you go, oh, okay, and you carry on. But this was something that was so common, everybody flipped a switch, and they were like, no, it was the other way. It was definitely the other way, and they argued about it. And they would look it up, and they can't find evidence of the other thing, and they start to go crazy. Well, that's not a very common phenomenon at all. And one of the other things I brought up was John Teeter, which is part of my whole time travel theory here. Do you know who John Teeter is, Taylor?
I'm unfamiliar with this name.
Good. Well, for listeners' sake as well, I should probably explain that. This was around the year 2000. He wasn't really named until 2001, but he made some posts on early internet claiming to be a time traveler. And he had to time travel back to grab an IBM computer because there was something about the computer that was special and they needed it for the future. he ended up leaving with a list of future events that mostly ended up being pretty vague, but did come true, leaving him as one of the few figures to claim to be a time traveler and just disappear into the ether afterwards. The internet was kind of left up to decide whether he was who he said he was, or if he was just a hoax. To this day, there's quite a few people like that, but John Teeter's the original real-life time traveler, so to speak.
I see.
This also is the start, coincidentally, of many Mandela effects.
Through this time traveler? This is when it started?
Around the year 2000, that's when not only were Berenstain Bears and things like that later in 2012 discovered, but a lot of the Mandela Effect stuff on our list, and probably one of the earliest ones I could find, was around the year 2000. The only exception to this being Nelson Mandela.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he's the one that coined the name. But before we dive into crazy theories and changes, let's talk about the possibilities. I mean, essentially, what is the Mandela Effect? Logically speaking, it's just people misremembering things. Growing up, I definitely wouldn't have paid attention to the spelling of Berenstain Bears. Once I saw the phenomenon on the internet, I probably paused a little too long to look at it and thought, maybe I remember that. But why is it that everybody else also remembers it that way? Is misremembering something a human condition? Do human beings so easily just go with the flow? I think seeing all of that could have played a part in making me think that I remembered it as Berenstain. So the question then goes into theories. Is it time travel? Or are we living in an alternate reality? If so, how many alternate realities are there? Is it just the Stain and the Steen universe, or is there a new reality for every single decision ever made, a la time travel or the butterfly effect? Is it down to a cellular level, creating an infinite number of possibilities where all at once everything is happening at every point in time in every possible way? Kind of like the infinite monkeys typing out crazy books and stuff like that. Well, if there's an alternate reality right now where dinosaurs still exist, maybe there's an alternate reality right now that's just 10 minutes in the past, and so on and so on.
So you're portraying the concept of an alternate reality completely parallel and moving at the same time as ours right now. Additionally, an infinite amount of parallel timelines operating 30 seconds in the past, a minute in the past, a minute and 30 seconds in the past, all the way back, like
Every
millions of
possibility.
years in the past. Yeah, okay.
With every choice and definition and things being made. I mean, a world where it's just cells and stuff that never forms life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as evidence goes, when it comes to alternate realities, turns out that NASA seems to think that this is the case now. In 2020, NASA scientists used a massive instrument over in Antarctica to conduct some experiments on particles traveling through space. They discovered evidence, only visible on the instrument itself, of particles that moved backwards in the aging process, passing through Earth like an invisible entity, disobeying the laws of physics, and seemingly something that didn't exist in our plane. But they were there, and they were observed. Afterwards, they concluded that they were witnessing something from a likely parallel universe, or an alternate reality.
So an overlaying amount of particles on top of our own plane of existence, reality, we're actually rewinding, is what you're saying.
Essentially, yes. As if there was an alternate reality happening at the same time where things were progressing backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So if an alternate reality can be observed, is it possible that somehow we can move between them, a la Doctor Strange style? Let's go back a ways through history, as we sometimes like to do, with something completely different. I want to tell you a story about a soldier that seemingly slipped out of reality and ended up elsewhere. On October 24th, 1593, a soldier was guarding the Palacio de Galo Bernardo in Manila in the Captaincy General of the Philippines. I might have mispronounced the name. I apologize. The night before, Governor Gomez Perez de Marinas was assassinated by Chinese pirates. But the guards still guarded the palace and awaited the appointment of a new governor. The soldier began to feel dizzy and exhausted. He leaned against the wall and rested for a moment with his eyes closed. A second later, when he opened his eyes, he found himself in Mexico City in the Viceroyalty of New Spain, thousands of kilometers across the ocean. Some guards found him in the wrong uniform and began to question who he was. The news of the assassination of the governor of the Philippines was still unknown to the people in Mexico City. The transported soldier was reportedly wearing the palace guard's uniform in Manila and knew of his death. In fact, Perez de Marinas was killed at sea some distance from Manila. The authorities placed him in jail for being a deserter and with charges of being a servant of the devil. Months later, news of the governor's death came to Mexico on a galleon from the Philippines. One of the passengers recognized the imprisoned soldier and said that he had seen him in the Philippines a day after the death of the governor. So he was eventually released from jail by the authorities and allowed to go back home. Now, this feels like a glitch in the Matrix, doesn't it? Did this soldier just slip through realities? Did he teleport? How did this happen? Did he fall into an ad break? Wow, I certainly get carried away. So I was a little late on the ad break there, but...
No, I'm glad. I don't know if you could read my phone when I was holding up. I looked, I was blurry. Like, oh, that's illegible.
Yeah, you held it up. It was super blurry, but it made me look at the timestamp. That's okay. We can give the viewers a break from the regular 12-minute ad breaks. So, going back to the topic at hand, did he fall into an alternate reality where the world was just aligned differently? But events similar to his own had transpired and he failed to ever notice the difference? Guess we'll never know. But the question again remains with more and more questions. Could this happen to us on a regular basis? Perhaps there's a fail-safe mechanism, and if the planet ever fails, we simply get transported to a reality where things proceed as normal. Do we awake every day in a slightly different reality? Or perhaps we're dreaming and about to wake up back in the Steen universe. There's too many questions and very few answers, so I think I'm going to start getting towards the end of the theory scenario by just recapping the possibilities and organizing them as efficiently as possible. So there's possibility A. There is one reality, and humans often misremember things. Sharing this information spreads like a virus, and soon everybody misremembers something. B. There is one reality, and time travel can happen and overwrite this universe with new information. C. There are two realities, and something happened that sent a huge amount of people's consciousness into the second reality. D. There are many realities, and it's possible that people slip in and out of them all the time, whether or not they know it through accidents, time travel, sleep, or other means. Now, these theories don't even begin to theorize on what reality actually is, like whether or not we're in a simulation, but they do provide benefit of the doubt for the Mandela Effect, a tiny taste of what crazy spirals of conspiracy feel like. So while in the end we don't have an answer to what it is, we just know that the Mandela Effect is there, and like alternate realities, the true answer could very well be all of the theories at once. Before we move on to fun Mandela Effect things, Taylor, what do you have to say about anything I may have missed?
Well, I like how you were talking about like things like paralleling each other, and that's something that I kind of dove into a little bit about parallel universes myself. So dimensions, alternate universe, alternate reality, basically hypothetically speaking, a self-contained plane of existence coexisting with our own. Kind of touching back upon what you were saying, how they exist for in the past, the future, or again, an existence that's kind of rewinding and overlapping our own, that's in an observable state. I found that some researchers actually base their ideas of parallel universes on quantum mechanics. Now, you were talking again about how people might unintentionally drift in and out of these different paralleling realities. And as soon as I saw quantum mechanics, I thought, wow, this is really familiar all of a sudden. This is the mathematical description of subatomic particles specifically. And in quantum mechanics, multiple states of existence for tiny particles are all possible at the same time. So when we look at the quantum Bigfoot, when we had discussions with Ron Moorhead, then you can understand when he explains how this being kind of jumps and shifts in and out. And it's something that, as he described it, it's an ability they have, which if you have the human population that doesn't know how to access that, but might do it randomly by chance or by accident, I think that kind of makes sense. Like in the case you mentioned where this individual randomly appeared at another point in time and they were talking about like, well, his death and all that kind of stuff. Like this just didn't make sense. There was a lot of convolution. The story was convoluted.
It was like he slipped out of this reality and fell into a reality that was in the same timeline at the exact same minute, but the world just was along its axis a little bit different. He ended up in a different city.
Absolutely.
Or, one of the common theories is that he fell through a portal or something, which we've also just touched on in the past.
Definitely. So, do I want to touch upon that?
I made the segue hard for you.
A little tricky, but I mean, let's say, are there carbon copies in these other realities of yourself? Or when you kind of just transition, like is it full on Back to the Future where you travel through time and you see another Marty McFly? Or when you branch in another reality, do you merge with yourself? Do you become like, are you there just periodically? How does that work? Is it just your consciousness that's there?
That's an interesting question. Is it just your consciousness? Do you shift or do you trade places? I think if it was the time travel side of it, you'd have the possibility of seeing like yourself, for instance, right? So I think it's more common that we just flip and resume the current timeline or slip consciousness into our current selves. If that makes any sense at all, it's starting to sound almost unexplainable, but you know what what I'm getting at.
Absolutely. I found another interesting thing touching upon the quantum aspect, but when they mentioned particles, now I found this to be insightful when matter and particles only can be arranged so many times within the infinite universe, so many ways before eventually repeating itself. And the analogy that they actually gave specifically was in reference to a deck of cards. You can shuffle that deck so many times, but eventually at some point you're going to start shuffling it and it's going to be the same exact order of 52 cards as previous shuffled hands were. And that's the equivalent to these particles and all this matter reconstructing itself into all these different realities. Eventually it's going to create copies and keep going and going. And while it's an infinite amount, the infinite will repeat itself.
It's like one little thing could change. You could find an infinite amount of universes that are exactly like ours, but in each one of those separate copies, maybe there's a flower that's changed color. Maybe there's a letter that swapped places on a children's book. Maybe when Bigfoot's walking through the woods and he goes to read his kids a bedtime story, he goes, hold on, we got to slip into the reality where the spelling is correct. And they just cross-dimension walk over to the Steen universe, read the Berenstain Bears, and then come back and give us some sightings here and there.
You had that one encounter. Now, I shouldn't say encounter, more of like an experience that took place. I have one from 2009 that I found that I thought was pretty interesting, and I'm wondering if you have it in your notes, but it's very in line with what you were talking about. I'm happy to read it if you want to hear it.
Go right ahead.
So back in 2009, there's a man named James Richards, and he was in California. I believe he lived there, and he was driving home with his dog when he claims that he pulled over to basically let the dog go to the bathroom, and after the dog began to chase after a rabbit, he followed after the dog, he tripped, knocked himself unconscious. When he came to, he saw that he was next to a very weird looking machine, and he was in the presence of another man named Jonas. Jonas claimed to have found his unconscious body while on a work trip from an actual interdimensional travel agency. Now, I know this sounds super, super wacky, but it's just, I thought it was fascinating, maybe because it seemed like it was a little bit more, I don't even know the term. I digress. While they were together, the two of them actually started chatting about culture and their each universes. And the kicker here is that they discovered that not only did the Beatles also exist in this other dimension, but they were still all alive and actively making music. And Richards acquired a cassette tape labeled Everyday Chemistry, which contained Beatles songs that never existed in our dimension. And he uploaded the songs to a website called thebeatlesneverbroakeup.com. And I listened to it, and I really just don't know what I'm supposed to be thinking. Like, it's it could totally be a hoax, but just reading more into what he was writing, he seemed like a pretty sincere writer. Again, it could totally be bullshit. I listened to the music and I just thought to myself, this is so peculiar. And I just could think like, well,
does it sound like the Beatles?
It really could have been a complete, like it sounded, I'm not a super, the Beatles weren't my generation, but I've seen Paul McCartney live. Like I listened to Beatles songs, and listening to it, there were certain moments in the songs like, okay, it sounds like Beatles for sure. Like it's, could be Paul here singing, and could be John. But at the end of the day, like it could be just a good sound editor that just kind of like fondled around with it. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess there's that, but that's creepy.
Can I confirm? It is. It's just, it's an interesting thing. I just wanted to throw that into the slipping in, slipping out kind of thing, right? Although in this case, it sounds like this guy that appeared slipped in with a machine and wasn't necessarily a time traveler, but he was an interdimensional traveler.
Mm-hmm. Which, if you look at the possibilities of time travel, if it's just the one reality concept, time travel is exactly how we understand it. Or in the all reality timeline, well, that doesn't make any sense at all now, I'm confusing theories. In the all reality scenario, time travel would just be slipping into realities that are in a certain moment in time. The most likely universe that is captured in a moment of time. So like, hey, over in this reality, it's World War II. So you slip into that reality by time traveling to it. So you're not really time traveling. It's just a different word for changing realities.
Interesting. I see.
Do you have anything else before we move on to the fun side of the episode where we explore the Mandela Effect list?
Well, let's see. I got a couple other things I'll get in because I think the list will be, that's going to be some fun stuff. So I highlighted parallel universes. I wanted to talk a little bit about Deja Vu.
Deja Vu, like another ad break? Welcome back, everybody.
Holy shit, you got me. You got me so good.
Taylor cringed really hard when I did that one. It was amazing.
Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. Yeah, Deja Vu. That was definitely a case of Deja Vu right there. Now, the sense that you've done something or gone through a new situation already. Maybe even feeling like you know what's about to happen next. You walk into a room and then bam, it's like, I've been in this room before, even though I've never been in your house like prior. So that's kind of deja vu in a nutshell. Around 60 to 70% of people experience some form of deja vu in their lifetime. Now, trigger things quite often include sights or sounds. And the thing with this is it disappears as quickly as it occurs. And additionally, that results in difficulty for people trying to fully recall specific details about the experience. The age range that deja vu occurs more prominently in is between ages 15 and 25, and it starts to fade away as people age, basically.
I definitely still get some very strong deja vu moments, to a point where I've made it a habit because of the topics and things that we explore. When I experience deja vu, I look around for things that I remember in that deja vu moment to see if it lines up.
Really?
And usually my deja vu moments seem to last for about 5 to 10 seconds before the feeling goes away. Or as soon as I say, I'm having a deja vu, and as soon as I verbally acknowledge it, the feeling's gone.
Interesting. I don't have that many lately, actually, but I read that again, if you're young and if you're people that experience a lot of stress in their lives are very prone to experiencing deja vu as well. But I know when I was younger, I had some extremely prominent deja vu moments, and it used to really freak me out because I would visually see the memory that I experienced. Like, and I thought, I've done this before, but I didn't. This is the first time, which is so weird.
And they describe deja vu as merely being your brain misfiring your short-term memory into your long-term memory. So something that you're viewing right now, instead of being processed in your brain in this place where it normally goes for short-term, because that's what you're viewing now, ends up getting processed in the part of your brain that recalls things. So you're looking at an event, but your brain is misfiring and remembering what you're currently seeing instead.
It's a pretty good cop-out answer by the scientists and the people out there.
But I've definitely had a few deja vus where I can think, I remember when I dreamt of this scenario. Sometimes it was like a week ago. I was falling asleep and I was starting to have a dream or something, or I was talking to my child and all of a sudden I pictured something and went, that'd be interesting if that happened. At least I've had a couple of deja vus like that recently where I can recall the moment where I originally thought of it.
Mm-hmm. Madison actually had a deja vu not too long ago. Now, we were driving and we were looking for parking at a parkade. And they have signs in front of the parkades, digital signs that says like how many parking stalls are available still and if it's full or not. So that way you don't have to go into the parkade trying to find a spot when it's full. Mm-hmm. Now, we were driving past the parkade and there was no sign, but she went ahead and said like, oh, the parkade's full. And I thought to myself, how do you know that? And she said, I think she saw the sign or something like that, but we didn't pass any sign. We went down 2 more blocks to where there was the sign for the parkade and it said full. And that's when it clicked for her. She's like, oh my God, I'm having like major deja vu here because I swear I just saw the sign and it said full, but we didn't go past the sign until that point. So she experienced it and then the moment occurred, if that makes sense. It was very, very peculiar.
That's super trippy, experiencing it from your point of view.
Yeah, like a sense of foresight or a preemptive, precognitive kind of
premonition.
Yeah, very, very peculiar and weird.
That's super weird.
Mm-hmm. But I'll get more into how the deja vu kind of relates to the parallel universe. So again, to reiterate, the theory relies on the idea that an infinite number of universes exist alongside ours that we just can't view. You know, we talked about that already. And an infinite number of you could be walking around doing different things or the exact same thing, depending on your interpretation of this theory. Now, at its core, this theory explains that deja vu may occur when universes are in sync for a short period of time. While infinite universes may exist parallel to one another, they also may have slight differences that make them unique, exactly like you said prior. These differences could be, for example, you buy 2 donuts instead of 1 between 2 universes, or you pull over to fill your gas tank instead of putting it off. Now, the kicker here is when you choose to do something that's in line with your parallel self. You both walk into a new room you never entered before at the same time, and you form that sort of sync moment. And again, it doesn't have to be actually at the very same time. It could be within 5 minutes, 10 minutes of you both doing the same thing. And this results in the universes forming a sort of overlap. And you feel as though you just did something because in another universe, you technically did. And again, it is far out, very much so, but it's a concept that I know I like to subscribe myself to with my deja vu things. And again, we don't have proof of this, the multiverse and parallel universes. The mention that you signified there of the particles actually reversing, that's fascinating. I didn't know that actually, and I'm glad that you mentioned it, because the only thing I could find that was kind of adding light into this was quantum mechanics and string theory and what parallel universes could entail. The string theory I found itself is basically an attempt to describe the whole universe under a single theory of everything by adding extra dimensions in space-time and thinking of particles as basically like vibrating loops and such. It gets definitely a little hectic there, but if you're a string theory aficionado, then it's probably right up your alley.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That was a long story to have you string me along with it for, but I'm excited to get to the Mandela Effect list of things I feel like that's something that we should explore and look at together, because we had a conversation
Yes, we
leading
did.
up to this episode where I think I told you, what if based on our Mandela Effect experiences, we find out that one of us is from the original reality and the other is from the opposite, the Stain versus the Steen, for instance. I would love to see how our Mandela Effect list lines up, or maybe we're just from completely different realities altogether and we've crossed over to this one momentarily. Do you think it's time, without further ado, to begin that list, Taylor?
Oh, I think we need to get into it.
Now, you said you had a list of like 50 different Mandela effects.
I did. Is this the list you want me to run with?
I have a list of my own. It's definitely not that long. So why don't you start with yours, and then as we go through, I'll cross out the ones I have.
Okay. I am going to... I'm going to share my screen so you can see it and we can go through it together. So this is obviously the classic.
Oh, yeah.
Berenstain Bears.
Berenstain versus Berenstain Bears. That is the one that we've mentioned this episode. It's too bad our viewers can't see the screen there, but I'm sure people listening to this are gonna be some readers of the Berenstain Bear books, and they're gonna think, I remember it one way, or maybe you do remember it the Stain way.
So, I guess I was on number 4. Okay, here, number 1, Nelson Mandela's death. This is the first
Okay, yeah, that covered that one. I don't remember either way for that one. That was in the 80s. I was born in 92.
Yeah, I'm the same. So we'll skip on. Now, this is an interesting one. Which side of the coin are you on with Jiffy peanut butter?
I feel like it was... I don't remember for sure. I never really paid attention to it because we never bought that brand. I want to say Jif, though.
Is it Jif, GIF, or...
Oh, no, not this argument again.
I feel like, again, I was never this kind of a brand either. I believe I was Adam's peanut butter, but my memory tells me Jiffy. Mm-hmm. But that might be based off of me just saying like Jiffy Lube or something like that. It's, again, not something I'm familiar with.
I feel like there's certain Mandela effects that we can't count towards which reality we came from, because it could be either or. So I'm going to ignore the peanut butter one. And then we have Looney Tunes logos. One is spelled Toons, Toons. The other is spelled Tunes, as in music, Tunes. Now, I distinctly remember Looney Tunes with the 2 O's.
I distinctly remember that as well.
Apparently it's Looney Tunes, though, not Looney Tunes. And of course, I'm saying it's actually the musical spelling, Tunes.
That actually blows my mind. It really does.
That one hurts, doesn't it?
It does. I have no recollection of Tunes whatsoever.
Okay, let's go to the next one here.
Berenstein's.
Yeah.
Oh, this one you got me good with.
Yeah, Curious George's tail. People remember Curious George having a tail, wherein in fact he does not.
I remember him not having the tail. I really thought about this after we talked about it, and I realized that I was just more so shocked that the realization that he didn't have a tail. But I remember him not having the tail.
Mm-hmm. That's a strange one, but I never really read the Curious George books as a kid, so I can't comment on this.
Right. Here we go.
There's the adult-ish TV show, Sex and the City, which is mistakenly called Sex in the City. It's actually Sex and the City. Now, I remember seeing listings for this on like the TV channels that show you like what's on. I seem to remember it being in.
I do too. I don't remember the and part, but apparently that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. What's next? Febreze with 2 E's versus Febreze with 1 E. Ooh, that's a weird one. It's Febreze with 2 E's, right? Oh, no, it's not.
No, it's
bottles
not.
of Febreze somewhere I got to go look at after this.
That's a screwy one because I recall 2 E's for sure. There's going to be a spelling error. It's just Febreze.
Febreze.
Sure. Yeah, Febreze. That's what it is.
There's our new brand. Oscar Mayer versus Oscar Mayer.
I would
The spelling
only...
is different. It's an A
Yeah.
versus an E for mayor versus mere. And the correct one is mayor.
Mayor.
Yeah,
which
that's
I
a
don't-
weird one. I don't know
feel
either
like it
way.
should be. I feel like it'd be mayor.
And then we have the
Ooh.
Skechers logo. So there's Skechers with a T and Skechers without the T. I feel like the T is the natural spelling, so that's what I would have remembered, whether that was correct or not. Skechers
That's-
without it is weird.
That's what I would have remembered as well, as with the T. So far, I feel like we're pretty online. Oh,
Then there's Fruit Loops. So the Fruit Loops logo is a common one. People remember the loops being spelled with the two Fruit Loop cereal shapes and the word fruit having the U and the I. However, it's actually FROOT loops with the Fruit Loop loops for both fruit and loops.
this one's screwing with me. I never had Fruit Loops growing up. My parents didn't let me eat it.
I have Fruit Loops in the house right now, and I can tell you, I feel like it was spelled with the actual word fruit growing up, but that's a blurry, hazy one. That could just be my memory playing tricks on me.
I almost want to say it was the two O's, but that was a tricky one. Oh, King Henry.
King Henry's turkey leg. I have no idea what this one is, but it's a picture of King Henry holding a turkey leg and one of him just holding his hand on his hips. I feel like that one's a miss for me.
Yeah, I personally have never seen this photo before. I like him with the turkey leg though. It's it's pretty cool. Here we
there
go.
we
This
go.
is the one you mentioned to me.
The Monopoly Man. So when you picture the Monopoly Man, picture him with a hat and what else on his face? A monocle? Incorrect. He has no monocle. That one threw me for a loop.
This one threw me for a major big loop because in Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, when nature calls, he does a whole skit where he knocks out this guy with a monocle and then like drapes him over like a puppet and makes him say like, "Do not pass go, do not collect $200," like the Monopoly Man. And he calls him that too, but he's not wearing a hat. He's only got the monocle, so that further kind of instills the
Oh, that's so weird.
memory that he has a monocle, but he doesn't.
Yeah, I definitely remember the monocle. I feel like that was a thing. Mandela Effect's getting me there. Next one we have Pikachu with a stripe on the end of Pikachu's tail and no stripe at all.
I remember the stripe.
Yep, that definitely got me too. I remember Pikachu having a stripe on the tip of his tail.
I feel like later iterations, maybe I'm just headcaning it, but later iterations, they removed the stripe and just kept it a yellow tail. Like
I researched this
ones.
one. Going back, there has never been a stripe.
Weird. Really weird.
I probably have pictures that I've drawn of Pikachu when I was a little kid that have the stripe on the end of the tail. It'd be really trippy to go back and find out that I never drew the stripe at all.
That'd be that'd be a mind bender.
Yeah, so next up we have Kitkat, the chocolate bar. Kitkat is spelled with a kit and a dash and a cat. In reality, there is no dash, it's Kitkat. Gross. I
You don't like
that
Kit
one.
Kats?
I love Kit Kats. I don't like the hyphens throwing me off. I remember the hyphen.
I do remember the hyphen. That's peculiar.
So far, it sounds like you and I are from the same reality here, Taylor. So we get along so well. This one I talked about to you off-cast. We're looking at the Fruit of the Loom logo. Now, I distinctly remember the Fruit of the Loom logo because I remember asking my mother when I was a little kid, "What is this?" And I pointed to the logo, and I pointed specifically behind the fruit to the weird horn-shaped basket. And it had a fancy name. My mom just said, "Oh, it's a basket for the fruit." I remember this conversation very clearly. I remember questioning it. I remember wondering why it wasn't a normal looking basket because it had that weird horn shape to it. Now, imagine my surprise when I discovered the Mandela Effect. I'm going through things and I find the Fruit of the Loom logo. It doesn't have a cornucopia, which is that basket thing. People have drawn up the perfect rendition of it because a lot of people remember the cornucopia. But why? It's never had the cornucopia in it. Now, this past year, in 2021, for April Fools, Fruit of the Loom changed the logo on their website and all of their articles to include the cornucopia. Really threw people off. However, they changed it to a whacked out looking version that was not what people remembered at all.
That's just being evil.
It
'Cause
is.
I remember the cornucopia myself. I remember
Yeah,
getting
it's never been a thing.
That just blows my mind. That's what really got me off air because you blew my mind when you mentioned this because all I remember is when I was little getting the boxers and I had the cornucopia on there.
Yeah. All right, let's go through this list a little quicker here. I feel like we're about to enter another ad break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. That indeed was an ad break. Sorry to throw you all off. Cheez-Its versus Cheez-It. That's a blech one. Let's skip that one. I don't even want to look at Cheez-Its. Double stuff Oreos versus double stuff with one F. Ooh, that's weird, but let's carry on. Taylor, if you find a good one, you stop on it, like Mona Lisa's smile.
Oh, this one, it's like spot the differences here. So like a lot of theories about this one. Many people have claimed that she used to have a more obvious smile. Which one has the more obvious smile though?
I remember learning about the Mona Lisa, and it was a question of, is she smiling or not? People would always ask, oh, is she smiling? That's why people would stare and stop and look at the painting, because she had a very, very faint smile. In the Mona Lisa, though, she's not smiling at all. It's very clear that she's just blank and expressionless.
Interesting.
She's not smiling with her eyes or anything like that. Going into Star Wars here, we have C-3PO. C-3PO is not all gold, contrary to popular belief. He actually has a silver leg, and it's glaringly obvious. It almost looks like he's been amputated and has a robotic leg in its spot, which is more or less correct. That one got me.
Yeah, this one got me too. I remember the gold. I do not recall the white leg, the silver leg.
Mm-hmm. The Flintstones being spelt with a T in the middle after so it's the Flintstones. So there's two T's actually. It's actually just the Flintstones. So they're spelled Flynn with no Flint.
So it's supposed to be Flintstones, not Flintstones.
Oh my goodness, the Mandela Effect's getting me again. So it's actually supposed to be the Flintstones, which looks weird.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought it was the Flintstones. That's how I've always called it.
Maybe this one's just getting me and I'm misremembering it because I'm looking at it, which is part of the problem with some of these Mandela Effects. When you see them online and you see them side by side, whichever one your eye is drawn to first, you kind of think is the one you remember.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next one here. Cinderella's Castle. Okay, let's go on to the next one. I've never been to Disney World.
Ed McMahon, Publishers Clearinghouse. Oh, well, I'll pass along that. Play it again, Sam. Casablanca. This is one that I heard a few times people talking about. Play it, and it's basically this line said by Ingrid Bergman's character. Play it once, Sam, for old time's sake. But people seem to remember, play it again, Sam. So if you're an old movie connoisseur, there's a little bit of Mandela Effect for you.
Yeah, that one's weird. Here's another one coming up that's Star Wars related that I brought up to Taylor as well off cast. It's Darth Vader saying, Luke, I am your father. This is how it's always been quoted to me when people say the line. This is how I remember it as a kid, and this is how my dad always used to say it because he'd do the impression all the time. However, Darth Vader never said, Luke, I am your father. He would say, no, I am your father. Interestingly enough, there is a single clip on YouTube of the original theater screening that is tremendously bad video quality. Tremendously bad. But in that clip, you can clearly hear Darth Vader say Luke. Now, is that a video clip that is somehow transcended and crossed over into this reality? Or was it a glitch in that theater screening that played him saying Luke from an earlier timeline or time frame?
The weird thing is Star Wars has had so many recut versions and like re-releases over the years that I wouldn't put it past being initially like, maybe it was Luke, I am your father at one point, because just like your dad used to quote to you, I swear my dad did the same thing to me, talking about Luke, I am your father.
Yet we have all the originals at one point. You'd think that the Luke, I am your father is something that we would have been able to reference. The fact that we can't go back to original reels or anything like that is super strange. Just a YouTube video of it.
That's very true. Kind of like what if someone brought in new Beatles tracks from another alternate reality.
Exactly.
Okay, we got some Jaws here. We're going to need a bigger boat. You're going to need a bigger boat? No. Roy Scheider's character says that? No. Oh, I've watched Jaws so many times. I swore it's always been we're gonna need a bigger boat. That one really gets me.
Yeah, you know what always gets me too is the amount of advertisements in that movie.
How so?
Like on the billboards and stuff. So I was watching Jaws recently. You've seen it. You said you've seen it many times.
Mm-hmm.
Do you pay attention to the background? Because the amount of advertisements for like old shampoos and stuff, it's insane. You know,
Really?
the first lady that the shark kills, they find her head and shoulders on the beach. You walked right into that one.
Oh my god. Holy shit. Did you have that one just raring to go, or did you have that brewing for a while?
Well, I've had it from before. I popped up naturally. So let's carry on to the next one here.
Oh my god.
Chartreuse. That's a weird one. Now I feel like this is one you'd have to see just the name for and then try and think yourself.
You recall someone telling you that chartreuse is a magenta pink color? So many others agree with you, but in reality, it's a shade of green. I feel like this is it a gold or is it a blue dress kind of thing all over again? My goodness. Ah, okay, we got some Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Life is like a box of chocolates, is not what he said.
Yeah, his life was like a box of chocolates. That one got me.
Yeah.
I wonder if the next one's the mirror. Let's go through the list here. Oh,
wow.
It is. I think I looked at the same list as you. So Snow White has a very famous phrase that everyone remembers, and it's mirror, mirror on the wall. Turns out that's never said. It's magic mirror on the wall. That's trippy.
That one got me. Yeah, I remember mirror, mirror on the wall.
Yeah. Carrying on, there's quite a few on this list, Taylor, so feel free to skip through a few of the ones that we just don't instantly recognize or have already covered.
They've doubled down on Luke, I'm your father in this list. That's how
Let's
important
continue.
it is. Tom Cruise's sunglasses. Oh, if you've seen someone dressed as Tom Cruise in Risky Business, they most likely were wearing some cool shades. I do remember him wearing shades in this scene, but it was just socks and the shirt. That is very trippy. That's very trippy. Ooh. We got Lord of the Rings.
Now, this is one that I do Gandalf impressions, so I've always said fly, you fools. I've never said run, you fools. But people seem to remember run, you fools being the line, not fly.
I remember fly, you fools.
Oh, you're still in line with me, so we're still from the same reality so far.
It's probably because you
Okay.
say it to me so many times.
Oh, that's probably it. This one gets me. Hello, Clarice.
Ooh. That was a
Silence
good
of the
impersonation.
Lambs. Well, he never says it. Not even once.
What?
He never says hello, Clarice.
All he said was good morning?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
Okay, that's a mind bender for sure. That one really gets me.
Yeah. This one's a mind bender. So, Freddie Mercury singing Champions of the World. When you think of how the song ends, Taylor, play it through your head right now. We are the champions, etc., etc., etc. And how does it end? Think of the outro, do 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 do, and then the notes end down. What's the last bit of the sentence that's said?
Of the world, I'm pretty sure. It is of the world.
No, it's not said at all.
He never says of the
He
world
never says
at all.
of the world. No, it's just the notes end and the song fades out.
You're screwing with me.
No,
is that
read
not
it.
that's
Read
not
the
in the
thing.
song at all? What? Okay.
Look at the thing on your screen.
The Mandela Effect is here to ruin that too. We all think of the we're belting out or of the world at the end of We Are the Champions, but it never happened. Freddie does sing the words at the end of the song during the band's Wembley Stadium performance, so I guess he did. I guess then, but that's so weird. All I remember is of the world. Good Lord.
It's really messing with you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay, let's skip through a couple more of these.
Sir Rogers. That one actually screws with me. Ooh, I Love
That
Lucy.
one, that's old.
So, a number of U.S. states. The correct answer is 50. Recall learning that there was 51 or 52. I recall learning that there's 51 states. There's not 50 states. There's 51.
That's a weird statement, isn't it?
What do you recall?
I learned there was 51. At least that's what I recall. Let's keep going through this list here.
Smokey Bear.
Smokey the Bear is what I recall.
I recall Smokey the Bear too. That's weird.
Yeah. We'll have to link viewers to this list that we're talking about so they can go through with us, because there's a lot we're leaving out here in context.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's just things that we're just unfamiliar with before our time is all. Tank Man. So the Tiananmen Square, 1989. Some say the identified man was known as Tank Man was run over and killed, but other videos show him unharmed. I don't recall him being run over and killed. Pardon me. I don't remember him being killed. Neil Armstrong's death?
Yeah, so Neil Armstrong died in 2012.
What?
That's getting
Really?
you too?
This is the first I'm hearing of this.
And that's the Mandela effect. Nobody knows he's dead. Like, he died in 2012. That's old news.
That blows my mind. Oh my God. I'm going to go straight to the Googles after we're done recording this
Straight
to look
to
into
the
that.
Googles?
Straight into the Googles. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just haven't had any time to mourn for him.
You know what else we can mourn about? Nah, I'm not going to do it. I was really close to doing another one.
We're nearing the end.
We're not going to do it.
Billy Graham's death. Oh. I saw him standing there by the record machine. I love rock. Hang on. Jet fans, I saw him standing there by the record machine, and I love rock and roll. Oh, that's an interesting one.
Well, entertaining podcast here, Taylor.
I know. Sorry, I'm mumbling here. That one's not really Mandela.
You gotta narrate what
here.
you're talking about here.
I know. I'm horrible. Mother Teresa's canonization. People have strong opinions about when Mother Teresa was canonized as saint. The real event happened in 2016. Many people will remember her entering sainthood in the 1990s when she was still alive. You have any insight on Mother Teresa?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I don't. Space Shuttle Challenger explosion. You'll have to read the text there for me on that one.
Though the tragic accident took place on January 28th, 1986, there are a number of people who thought it happened in 1984 or 1985. This one doesn't hit me very hard. I know you're much more space prone than myself. Does it hit you at all?
Not at all.
Okay. The Lindbergh
I don't even recognize that one. That's an old newspaper, too.
That's very
Some of these are from
very
before
old.
our time. Yeah.
Patrick Swayze's health. The actor said he died after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. People have said they remember him recovering. I don't remember him recovering. I remember him passing in that one. Yeah.
I like how we're agreeing on pretty much everything so far, and it's a little bit creepy to find that we're not disagreeing on any, but there's certainly Mandela effects we both disagree on and ones we both agree on, which is super trippy.
Leonardo DiCaprio's first Oscar. Leo finally took home his Oscar for Best Actor in 2016. Countless people argue he scored one much earlier. He was nominated 5 other times. Yeah, this is one that I don't feel the Mandela vibes kicking in, because I always just would meme that he hasn't won an Oscar yet. You see the memes of, like, in that movie, I can't remember, I should know what it was called, but it's got the bear in it. And people were joking that the bear got the Oscar and he didn't, and stuff like that. Just really, really lame humor. Location of Disney World Castle. In the Magic Kingdom. Now, I've been to Disneyland.
I've never been to Disneyland or Disney World. Sadness.
I've never been to Disney World, but some even... Do you recall where the castle was located? Some, even one Orlando local, clearly remembers it being the entrance to the park. Yeah, that I can't speak to that, but interesting. Very interesting. Okay, well, there is like a juicy
That's your
dose.
list. I have more.
Oh, you got more?
I still have more.
Throw them my way.
Are you ready? That's fairly common Mandela effects. Now you have to wonder, if we've shifted realities and a bunch of stuff has changed, could it be possible that we've actually entered a third or a fourth reality since then? Because there's new Mandela effects. Now, a couple of these to start off with are possibly older ones, but I'm going to get into some new ones here. Taylor, growing up, did you ever learn anything specific about where the heart is in the human body, location-wise?
I learned that the heart was more in the center of your body.
Okay, so this is where we start to differ then. I learned that it was on the left side of the chest. Because I remember growing up thinking it was on the right side. Because you'd see in cartoons and stuff, it would go bump, 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 bump. I heard it was more towards the left, not in the center, more towards the left. So it could just be the wording there. Maybe I learned that wrong as a child.
I like I used to think it was more to one side, but then I remember I had to go into the hospital and get x-rays done on my chest, and I actually got to see where my heart was, and I saw it was in the center but slightly to the left, just a little bit, but not really far over like
It's
they would
dead
have you
center.
think. Is it actually dead center?
It's dead center.
Holy shit. Okay, yeah, then I differ again because I remember being told it was in the middle, but still slightly to the left a little bit. That's really trippy.
Now, let's get into a celebrity one here. What is a very famous quote from Dwayne Johnson as The Rock? Something you'd hear as he's walking up on stage in a wrestling match.
Oh, Travis would be very disappointed that I don't know this. Something he would say walking up their stage? I don't know.
Something you can smell.
Oh, God. Okay.
Oh, it's a famous line. What's cooking? Come on.
Is that it? Is that the line? What's
Can
cooking?
you smell what the Rock is cooking? No, it's a Mandela Effect. The only time he said it is if you smell what the Rock is cooking, not can you smell what the Rock is cooking. If you smell what the Rock is cooking. That's weird. The context is completely different.
Yeah.
It's still on T-shirts as "Can you smell what the Rock is cooking?" It's quoted currently as "Can you smell what the Rock is cooking?" But the originals are all if. So let's get into some new ones. This is stuff that has changed, and we're going to start with one that's probably close to a lot of us gamers and people that grew up playing video games, particularly Taylor and myself. Taylor, did you ever have an NES as a kid, like the actual classic NES? Describe to me the process of playing a game cartridge on an NES. You take the cartridge, you blow on it a little bit. What do you do with it to turn the console on and start the game? Step by step, go through your head.
Well, it only had like two buttons. I think the power button and the reset button on the front, if I remember.
But put the cartridge in. Go mentally step by step with me. You lift up the lid.
Yes.
Okay, now continue that.
Okay. Lift up the lid. I pull the cartridge out. Or sorry, I would click the click.
You have to pull it out after you pull it out to blow on it because it's not working the first time. But you put the cartridge in, and then what?
And then I would close the lid down.
You just close.
No. I would close the cartridge. I would push the cartridge down with my fingers into the console, and then close the lid.
That's the key point. You push the cartridge down, it clicks into place.
Yes.
The Mandela Effect has got us on that one.
You mean we don't click it down?
You can, but you've never had to. The game works without clicking it down. You just slide the cartridge in and turn it on.
Was that more like a functionality thing then? It just plays either way?
It plays either way.
Huh.
And if you think that's just a question of reality here, like, oh, we grew up, we just didn't know. Here's one that's going to really trip you up. The Great Pyramids have how many sides, Taylor? It's a pyramid. It's a triangle. It has 4 sides, right?
Yeah, it has 4.
8. Yeah, you think I'm messing
sides?
with you, don't you?
Yeah, you're screwing with me.
No, I am not.
Googling
the Great Pyramids have 8 sides. It's actually indented just a little bit in a star shape.
8-sided? Are you kidding me?
The Great Pyramids have 8 sides, not 4.
Oh, I can see the indents in this. Yeah, wow, that's very interesting.
All right, here's a fascinating one, another history lesson here. What is lightning attracted to, Taylor? Growing
Metal.
up, you learned that lightning's attracted to metal. This is not the case and has never been the case. Lightning has 0 attraction to metal. That threw me for a loop. I learned differently, clearly. Lightning has never been attracted to metal. It is not the case. If you remember being taught that Benjamin Franklin had a kite with a key on it and was testing it to get struck by lightning, shocking, I know, it's wrong. He never had a kite get struck by lightning, and it's never been attracted to metal.
So is it all just bullshit?
It's never happened. Google it. Lightning's not attracted to metal. People grew up learning that was not the case. Lightning is not attracted to metal. Lightning is attracted to thin, sharp points that channel itself into the ground.
So Benjamin Franklin, did he ever do the...
He flew a kite and it never got struck by lightning. Now, here's an interesting one. When people quote the classic Lassie TV series with that lovable little dog in it, what's one of the big common quotes when Lassie comes up to tell you what's going on? What's wrong, Lassie?
That I don't know. That's a tricky one.
Lassie, did Timmy fall down the well? Does that sound familiar at all?
That sounds familiar.
Well, it's a very common quote. It's even in the actor's autobiography about falling down a well. Never happened. There's no episode on it. Timmy never fell down a well.
So what happened to Timmy?
That is the number one quoted Lassie quote. What's wrong, Lassie? Did Timmy fall down the well? It's never happened. But it's the number one quote from the show.
No kidding.
Here's a real trippy one. Let's go into Disney here. The Jungle Book. There's a scene where Mowgli is being coerced into giving King Louie fire. During the song, Baloo interrupts and dances alongside him wearing a disguise. Taylor, describe for me the disguise. What's he wearing? What's he got? What's he wearing?
He's wearing like a skirt-like thing of
and
the badonkadonks over his chest and
the coconut bra.
Yeah, and he's got the coconut over his lips too.
So you remember the coconuts over his lips. So even the animator swears that he drew the coconut bra on him. There is no coconut bra.
And the animator claims to have?
The animator talked with his cohorts and animated the scene because they thought it would be hilarious to have him in drag to bring some comedy into the situation. However, Baloo was never animated wearing a coconut bra. He just has a yellow skirt and coconut beak.
Holy shit, you're right. Oh my god.
The animator says otherwise. It was never the case. There's not even concept art like that.
That's really freaky.
Isn't it? Now, how about something even freakier? I want you to think about our galaxy for a minute. What if I told you that Earth has changed locations in the galaxy? What if Earth is not where it has been anymore? It's different now.
I would believe that. I would prescribe it like the Stargate kind of theory.
Okay. So growing up, I learned that Earth is in the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way galaxy. Not in the center, not in the outside edge, just in the Sagittarius arm, one of those big swirly bits.
Okay.
It had a name, Sagittarius. That's not where we live anymore. It has suddenly changed to the Orion arm, in a different spot on the opposite side of the swirl. And this change is pretty fresh, and it may not make a whole lot of sense because not many people are going to remember the name. However, if you use the Internet Wayback Machine, every reference to Earth's location is in the Sagittarius arm, including on NASA's website. On the page telling you exactly where Earth is located, the only word on that entire page that has changed is Sagittarius to Orion. You can view this on the Wayback Machine. There was no announcement. There was no discovery. Nothing. On TV shows, it was told to be in the Sagittarius arm. Neil deGrasse Tyson makes a joke about Earth's location. He's zooming out, mentally image, and he goes to the Sagittarius arm. He name drops it. Other TV shows do the same thing. This just changed randomly. We're being taught it's in the Orion arm now. NASA's website says it's in the Orion arm. There was never we made a mistake, or we changed it, or there's been a discovery. We renamed it. Nothing like that. It just changed.
Well, I feel like that's a whole episode on its own. Holy crap.
It is. Now, Taylor, I think we've uncovered a lot of madness. Take it away. I'm not writing any notes for an outro this time.
Yeah, that was just fantastic. Well, I mean, in closing, I'm just baffled. You blew my mind with a lot of the different Mandela effects and the different parallels, and I can only wonder if there is a connection between our consciousness and a overlapping consciousness from another point in time that we splintered off of, or another dimension that's paralleling ours, whether going backwards or forwards. It's something I'm just at a loss for words, but I think we really did a good diving into a lot of this information and research. But I mean, without further ado, I mean, we'll close it out there.
Definitely been a long, somewhat scattered episode, but I think we did a really good job covering the Mandela Effect. Now, after we're done saving this, if it sounds at all different to how we recorded it, we're going to blame the Mandela Effect for it. So, Taylor, do you want to do the honors of taking us through the outro and saying goodbye?
Yes, hello, ladies and gentlemen. You can find us on our website, CryptidClues.ca, on our social media channels, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Additionally, you can find us on our Patreon where you get ad-free exclusive early episodes. And you can also send us an email, cryptidclues@gmail.com, if you want to say hi, see what's cooking. And yeah, that basically is it.
If you smell what's cooking.
Yeah, can you smell what Cryptid Clues is cooking?
Alrighty, everybody. Bye-bye.